What's going on, everyone? Have you ever had a bad training session
Are you crying?
No, that's eyeball sweat.
where you've found yourself failing to hit your performance goals, found yourself experiencing unwanted aches and pains, found yourself feeling extra lethargic and fatigued, and have you found yourself mentally and or physically struggling to manage the experience of having one or multiple bad training sessions of that nature? If you have, then this is definitely the episode for you. In our conversation, Zach and I share and discuss our personal experiences with having bad training sessions and what we've done and what our approaches have been to overcoming them. I know you're going to find this episode to be both helpful and relatable. So, without further ado, let's dive in.
Okay, Sam. So I got a question for you to start. So I know you recently started your latest fat loss season. You're getting ready for your prep, and then kind of getting more dialed in with the nutrition, the training, all this other stuff. Have you had recently, or even through your experience history, had any specific bad training sessions? Maybe specific lifts that have kind of struggled with, and you've somehow overcame, or maybe moved on and did something different, or where it's like, man, this just workout was bad. I've had maybe a couple weeks where it's bad. Just kind of your thoughts on when we have tough training sessions.
To answer your question, yes, I have had countless bad training sessions over the years since I started lifting. I think one of the biggest differences between when they would happen when I was younger versus now, because I've had bad training sessions since day one up until now, is I react to them a lot differently. My perspective to what a bad training session is and how that affects me and how that affects my overall progress has changed pretty significantly. So to give a little bit of context, when I first started lifting, I was pretty young. I'll start where I got my first gym membership, training at a public gym. So I was 16, grade 10, 11, 12, I think. And I injured myself quite a bit. So during the training sessions where I would injure myself, I classified those are what I would classify as being bad training sessions for me. And I was pretty neurotic, I think. I still have that trait, but I think if I were to test in certain personality traits, especially when I was younger, I think I would have scored pretty high in neuroticism. I think I've chilled out a lot since then. But initially, I was the way that I would react to experiencing aches and pains or underperforming because something felt off or whatever, I'd really stress about it. Like really, I'd fixate on it. I'd think about it for hours after my training session. If I'd feel like an ache or a pain, I would poke it all day, like test it, like, is it feeling better? And it's like, of course not, because I keep poking it and making it worse. And so in the beginning, I didn't react very well to those kind of bad sessions. And for me, the worst sessions were always the ones where I'd leave the session with a new ache or pain. Nowadays, skipping many years later, I still have training sessions like that where I get nagging pains every now and again, or maybe I don't perform as well as I'd hope, but I I'm not as neurotic about it. And I think a part of that is my perspective has changed. I know that I can I can try to learn why I experience the ache or pain to change the way that I train in the future to learn how to train more efficiently or in a way that will mitigate any chance of experiencing the injury again. And oftentimes I found that when I make those kind of adjustments based off of learning from my past training mistakes, I found that it actually has taught me how to train better. It actually fixed my technique so that I could actually stimulate for muscle growth a little bit better. At least that's my theory.
Yeah.
So that has helped change my perspective. The other thing that's helped change my perspective is knowing that if I underperform or if I do get a little ache or something like that, it's a bad session, I know that it's just one session. It's
Mm,
not a big
mhm,
deal. In
mhm,
the grand
mhm.
scheme of things, we're consistent lifters.
Yeah.
Over the course of my lifetime, I've got thousands of training sessions under my belt, probably. I've never counted. So, what's a bad training session in the mix? It's like
Yeah.
absolutely trivial. It's a blip on the radar, and even a bad training session can lead to some stimulus. Like, it's not like it means nothing entirely, right? So
Yeah.
it's not like it counts for 0 or negative 0. It's like I still might have got something out of it despite it not feeling fantastic. So now when I experience those kind of sessions which I definitely do, I'm I roll with it a lot more easily,
Mm,
and that's kind
mhm,
of how I
mhm.
think about it. When something happens, I underperform or I get a little pain or something like that, it's like, "Okay, I'm gonna roll with it." I'm gonna like, if
Yeah.
I need to change the way I'm training to adjust for a pain, it's like, no big deal. That's the cost of training hard sometimes is you run into those kind of things. I can adjust, I can adapt, and I'm gonna be able to hold on all my muscle. It's a blip
Mhm,
in the radar, and it could be a blessing in disguise if it teaches me at the end of the day how to train better. And then the other thing too is I think for me is understanding the season that I'm in
mm, mhm.
and like what my current content text is. So for example, right now, you mentioned that like I'm starting my pre-prep diet, my early fat loss phase. I'm like I'm 9 weeks in. I think 9 weeks
Okay.
from tomorrow.
Nice,
So
nice.
9
How
weeks.
much you down? How many pounds right now?
A bit over 10 pounds.
That's good. That's
So,
good.
I think I'll see a couple new lows by the end of this
Nice.
week. So, it's a good healthy rate of fat loss, a little bit more than a pound a week.
Hey,
Um,
that and for
but
some people, that's a lot for some. So that I mean, you say it like it's easy, like no big deal, but that's a good progress right now. This is early too.
yeah, thank you. Well, I mean, it's a bit about a 0.5% of my total body weight per week, which is I mean, it's relative to my total body weight, it's not that much. I started at 210 pounds. So, but the good part about it is, in addition to like, hey, 10 pounds is awesome at the end of the day, but because it's at a relatively low rate of loss, half a
Mhm.
percent, it's really good for muscle saving. So there's a high probability I'm holding on to my muscle because it's not aggressive. I'm not being assertive about trying to push the deficit.
Mhm.
It's likely that I'm able to that I am successfully holding on to all the muscle that I've worked really hard to build, which
Yeah.
is ideal 'cause I'm doing this for bodybuilding. It's not just about getting as lean or as skinny as
Yeah.
possible. That is a part of it, but
Mhm.
ideally you get as lean as possible with being as big as possible. So
Yeah.
that's kind of some of the theory behind it. But understanding the season that I'm in a fat loss phase as far as performance drops go. So like 8, 9 weeks into dieting, just naturally, like energy is lower. There's less
Mhm.
supply feeding my training at this point, and l- leading up to the fat loss phase, before I
Mhm.
started the fat loss phase, I was training really, really hard, like pushing my limits 95% of the time. And so being 8 or 9 weeks into the deficit, I'm still trying to push my limits, I suppose. But because the supply from the food I'm getting, my energy is lower, my energy
Mhm.
intake is lower. I don't have as much supply to push my limits as much. So in this season, I'm not seeing as many PRs.
Mm.
Performance isn't
Mhm.
the same as it was when I was lean bulking. It's just not. Like
Yeah.
it's great. I'm getting really good stimulus, but I'm not hitting very many PRs. And I think if I saw myself in this context like 8 or 9 years ago, that might have freaked me out. I might have been
Yeah.
like, I'm losing muscle, my performance, I'm not hitting PRs, something's off. And it's like, no, it's like what I've learned, I think at this point, is that understanding the season I'm in, getting deeper into a fat loss phase. Supply is lower. The priority is getting good stimulus to hold
Mhm.
on to the
Mhm.
tissue. I'm not really building muscle at this point. I'm trying to train as hard as I can, but accepting that I'm not hitting PRs as being part of the process gives me a lot of mental peace. So I don't beat
Yeah.
myself up to it over it like maybe I would have 8 or 9 years ago. So that's something that really helps me. But,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
about you? Have you
Well,
Go ahead.
yeah, no, I was gonna ask a quick clarifying question because, I mean, you kind of alluded to the mental aspect here at the end when you're understanding your goals. But when you clarify like a bad training session, do you think that is for you more focused on the physical aspect of it, or like for me, I that is a physical aspect of it, but I feel like a lot of it's my effort. Like I leave there knowing I didn't put it all on the table, and then I beat myself up about it, and then it's like, why did I not put it all on the table? Like, do you think you have those issues, or have you seen those with your some of your clients or something? Or is for you, is it more of like, hey, something just wasn't feeling right, so therefore the lift like mechanically wasn't there? Not like because you're locked in every time, or is there days where you're like, man, I don't want to go to train today. I had some, personal stuff going on, but I'm here because I'm consistent. But like, yeah, I'm just going through the motions. Or like when you're there, it's like, no, no, I'm locked in. Or, you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense.
That's a really good question. I Today's a good example for me, I think.
Mm.
So today started with Bulgarian split squats. I felt physically groggy getting into
Crazy.
it. Physic
Not
Physically,
advised for everyone at home. Starting with Bulgarian split squats. No, I'm just
do
kidding.
not try this at home. Your discretion is advised. I went into the training session feeling groggy, both physically and mentally. I was just tired. Felt
Mhm,
fatigued, body didn't feel great, and my I really wanted to hit 16 reps for
mhm,
my first set. I'd hit 15 reps for a couple sessions in a row. I know I can hit 16, but
mhm,
I hit 15 again. And
mhm,
I think when I got to the end of the set, I was like, I think I can get that 16th rep, but I made the decision in the moment to not do it.
mm. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And thinking back, I'm thinking like, was that an impulsive decision? Did I just like quit on myself?
Mm,
Like, did I
mhm.
quit on that last rep? But honestly, I don't think so. I think it was actually, I know it was a mental decision, but I don't look at that as a failure in that I chose to not put in maximal effort. It was that in the context of today, it was the smarter decision not to.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
was the smarter decision, and looking because it's so easy to look at everything like
Mhm.
under a magnifying glass, but if you
Yeah,
take the magnifying glass away and you look at this one training session in the grand scheme of things, the difference between that one rep, and it was still really hard. This wasn't like me taking a big break. It
yeah.
was like the difference between me there was no difference. It's like if I went for the 16th rep, there'd be no difference overall. Like
Yeah.
I might have hurt my hip. Like that's one of the things I was like, "Okay, I gotta, I'm in the fat loss phase. Like I feel my joints a little bit more. I don't want to hurt my hip, and like
Mhm.
I'm feeling groggy. And it's like today, this is my limit.
Yeah.
So maybe it's like to your question, you're wondering like from a mental aspect and questioning like the effort that you put in. I think that you can look at it on a day by day basis. If you're feeling like groggy or like things at home suck or like
Yeah.
I don't know, you got a lot of stuff on your mind, work really sucks and you're feeling stressed, I think that that decreases your limit for the day
Mhm, mhm.
potentially. So choosing to not surpass that limit might actually be the most strategic, the
Yeah.
smartest thing that you can do because if you were to go past the limit, it might be the path to a nagging pain. That's what I always think for me because I know
Yeah.
I'm only as strong as my weakest links, and when I'm groggy or I'm stressed, my joints and my tendons are my weakest links, and that's what goes out, and that really
Mhm.
sucks. So
Yeah.
I think sometimes the best decision is to know what your limits are on a day by day basis,
Mhm.
make the judgment call in the moment, and not beat yourself up if like you don't perform as well as you'd hoped, or if it isn't even as good as even as good as your prior session or several of your prior sessions. What do you think? Is that something that
Yeah,
you found yourself
I
struggling
think,
with?
yeah, lately, probably the last, um week, 2 weeks, I've been super stressed about this. That's kind of why it was on my mind. Um, and so much you say is like resonating, and I am like having faith in the process in the system. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up is because I think one of the things we can get into maybe a little bit later is we've developed where we're consistent, trainers. Um, so we understand like going every day is better on the long, uh, big picture. I think what sometimes if someone's new and they have a bad training session early, it's a lot harder, right? Because they don't see those wins early, and they can lose that motivation because they haven't yet built the skill. But yeah, for me, I've had a lot. Like I don't think I still am loving lifting, but I haven't really been prioritizing gaining. I think, even though I think I have, like I think if I looked at my numbers, I am definitely stronger than I have ever been. It just doesn't feel like it because I'm not as dialed in and focused on like, okay, last week I hit the reps I wanted, so I'm going up 2.5 pounds. I'm kind of just like, "Oh, I'll do the same. I'll just try to do one more rep, or maybe I'll throw it up 20 pounds today and just do half as many reps." So I'm not as just like detailed in my training. And it's really because it's not my focus right now. So I think with because I'm not as detailed in it, it's just the data is not as clear. So when I do have a bad session or I feel like I didn't put the effort in, I look at the data and I'm like, oh, suck. Even though it's, well, maybe I don't suck. Maybe me tracking the data to a specific T is not as good. And this is really hitting me with the marathon training. So it's funny as we're talking about like, injuries or where we're at in the understanding our goals. I keep thinking there's a saying for a reason. It's a marathon, not a sprint, right? And I think this applies to life and training and everything, but it also applies right now to the marathon training. Um, and a little bit of a caveat, not to go too into a rabbit hole here. But I went on a run on Sunday and I skipped my long run on Saturday. And instead, I had an epic leg day. And I'm already like, why am I doing this? This is not concurrent with my goals. Like, why am I making, like, my first question is like, why am I making these decisions? Okay. So that's like problem number one. And then number two was like, I was supposed to do a long run on Sunday, supposed to go 12 miles. I went 6 and I stopped. And I felt like my knee was kind of tight. I felt like it was awful. And then I was just like, am I just making excuses, right? Like part of my mind is saying, okay, don't over push it. Right? We know that we have until end of October for this. So it's a long prep time. So shouldn't force it. But then I'm like, I also don't want to train the mind to give up when it starts to get painful because it will be painful, right? Um, and so I was really down on myself, right? And I was like, oh, pity party. And you know what? Insult to injury. I get onto Facebook, and my memory from last year on the same date, I ran 15 miles at a faster pace than I did the 6 miles today, and in like 95-degree heat. And I was like, I am weak, and it was just like, boom. And then, Monday came around, I got on the scale and I went up 4 pounds. And I was like, boom. Right. And then I went to the training session in the gym that day and it was just like, I kind of half-assed it, you know. And so I was like just feeling super stressed about that. I was looking at my lifts and I'm like, man, I'm just kind of phoning it in. I've kind of plateaued in a sense. I feel like my running isn't where I want it to be compared to last year's prep. Um, and now I'm like comparing myself for where I'm going to be, like how I did last year, where I feel like I overperformed. And I think I overperformed in the marathon and the bodybuilding. And it's like now the marathon's coming up and I have to do the same. And then I know the bodybuilding is going to be after that and I want to do better. Right? Like, so I have this like internal pressure. Um, and so that's kind of where it's coming from. But I will say there's like a light at the end of the tunnel. Like yesterday, had a great running session. Um, Dropped a whole bunch of weight after like the stress, kind of went away. And I had someone comment. It was funny when you brought up like your goal is like retain muscle, not just get skinny. I had a photo from 2 years ago where I got to my lowest, like 165, and someone at work saw it and was like, "You're so skinny." And that's what they said. They're like, "You're so much like more jacked now," and I'm so much heavier. And I was like, because you just look at the number, you're like, I need to, because I'm thinking I need to get to that number for the show, right? Obviously with a lot more muscle. But it was like, okay, maybe it's not as bad as it thinks. And so I just, that's kind of where it's all coming from. And I think for some people, especially newer trainers or lifters or people that are starting a new journey, like I, I just want people to know, like, me where I'm at in my journey, you where you're at, like I think we still go through this and people can understand, like, there's bad days, there's bad sessions, there's plateaus for weeks at a time maybe, but if you just keep on grinding and trusting the process, like, you will make progress. But so that was a really long-winded freaking answer about kind of bad training sessions. For me though, I feel like a lot of times for me it's an effort thing and I feel like I'm failing myself, is not like a physical thing. And there are physical injuries I've had, and I know not to push it, but it's like there's that fine line. We were talking about one of the other podcasts, like training to failure. Is it a mental thing? Is it a physical? Like, where is that line?
I've experienced all of that to
I
very
love
high
it. I love
degrees.
it. I love it.
Super relatable.
Yeah.
I wanted to quickly interrupt this episode to let you know about the work that I do. I work full-time as an online physique coach, helping my clients to accomplish their muscle growth and fat loss goals by optimizing their approach to strength training and nutrition. I've been doing this work since 2018 and love helping my clients to transform their bodies and ultimately their lives. If you've been considering getting some help with accomplishing your own physique goals, you're invited to hit the link in the description below to learn a little bit more about the work that I do and how I can help you. You can even use that link to schedule a free video consultation with me. If you have any questions about my coaching or how I can help you, just email me at sam@jadeathletics.ca. All right, let's get back to the episode. I want to share a couple of stories, but maybe I'll start with one super quick one. You're talking about like this run. The plan was how many miles? 12 miles? 12. You stopped at 6. Things weren't feeling good. Knee was getting tight. You're probably feeling all sorts of feelings, not so hot. So you made the call. You stopped it halfway. When I did my first prep, I had all these. I'm going to go back to my aches and pains because that's my kryptonite. I had all these aches and pains throughout that prep, and I was, I had so much to learn still. And I was getting this gnarly knee pain, like gnarly. And my goal was I want to get as strong as I can throughout this prep. That was my goal. Like, I want to get as lean as possible, and I also want to squat as much as possible. Kind of conflicting goals. I actually did pretty good. But anyways, throughout this process, I'm pushing the squat numbers. I'm feeling worse, but I'm still performing, and my knees are getting banged up. This is before I really locked in with like how to figure out my own good technique, be able to like really work with my body to perform well and to avoid injury. But anyways, I was just kind of beating my head against a brick wall, trying to push the numbers up, but whilst enduring this knee pain until I got to the point where it's like, man, I can barely squat anymore. And I was working with a coach at the time. And I was telling him, I was like, yeah, I got this knee pain. I'm just going to keep like trucking through it. I'm going to keep trying and it's going to be fine. And he was like, what are you doing? Like, this is asinine. This is what you're doing is crazy. No sugarcoating it. And so he changed what I was doing, like had me lifting lighter, had to like take a little bit of time off doing the squats. And so he said something to me. He said that, and this has always stuck with me, is sometimes the most hardcore thing that you can do is to know when to pull back, not to keep going. That's the most hardcore thing. And man, it's
like
so
that.
true, right? Because for a certain personality type, this personality type wants to always push. You're driving, you're fighting to keep the numbers up, to keep improving. And the thought of pulling back or failing, it's like almost cringe, right? Or like, failing, just not doing what you plan to do. So it can be, because it's such a cringeworthy thought, it's almost easier to like train through pain or train to the point of sacrificing too much, putting too much on the line where it strategically is not a good idea.
Yeah.
And the harder thing to do for this personality type would be to voluntarily stop before meeting what the goal is so that you can strategically survive. Take 2 steps back so you take 1 step back so you can take
Yeah.
2 steps forward so you can,
Mhm.
survive today so you can live to fight another day. That's, I think, is can be the harder thing to do depending on the personality type. I know for
Yeah.
me, that's my personality type. I also know for you, that's your personality type. It's not the same for everyone, right? Like a lot
Yeah.
of people, that doesn't resonate with everyone.
Mm,
And
mhm.
so, you know, a lot of people will stop their sets early always. Like
Yeah.
they're just get the training session done. I did, my 10 reps and like I'm not
Yeah.
pushing my limit. So it's not for
Yeah.
everyone, right? Like that's a different personality
Mhm.
type. Everybody's different, but there is the personality type where you just want to push, 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 push. And the thought of not doing that is really cringe. But
Mhm.
sometimes the smart thing to do and the hardcore thing for that personality is to voluntarily
Yeah.
pull back. So like for you, you
Mhm.
voluntarily stopped at 6 miles.
Mhm.
From my perspective, hearing you say that, your knee was feeling funky, things were off, like, just wasn't, just wasn't that sounds like it was actually the smartest thing to do, even though, like, you felt bad for the rest, it was probably the smartest thing that you
Yeah.
could have done. And then if you take the magnifying glass off of that session, you look at it
Mhm.
from the grand scheme of things, it's like, okay, so you ran half the time you planned to. You look back a year ago and it's like, "Oh, shoot, I did way better from that last from that anniversary session a year ago. I suck." But when you take the magnifying glass off of the course of not just this marathon prep, but
Mhm.
like your entire marathon career, athletic career, bodybuilding career, whatever, like it doesn't even matter. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I get the mentality, like it's like there's a principle behind it, right? Like you
Mhm.
always want to have the growth mindset, the winning mentality, like no quit, never.
Yeah.
Yes, however, what works in alignment with that is
Mhm.
knowing when to strategically pull back. That's part of
Mhm.
the winning mentality, I think. Um, but anyways, that's my 2 cents. Like from hearing you describe that from an outsider's perspective, it's like in the grand scheme of things, you took some time off. I think it was probably this, or you stopped the session early. It's probably
Mhm.
the smartest thing you could have done, and it was probably the more hardcore thing. It's just a
I
different
yeah.
perspective,
I
and
really
that but
like
that's
that
everything,
saying.
you know?
Yeah, I really like that saying too, because I think, like you said, for us, that is hard for us to do. Um,
It's still the hardest thing for me.
yeah.
It's still the hardest thing.
Yeah. And, I never feel like sometimes too, I don't know if this happens to you, like with your set and you start with Bulgarians because you're crazy. But like, you've been feeling groggy, you hit 15, you didn't hit 16. But like sometimes for me, the rest of my session will be awesome. So maybe just that first lift is like something that's just not it. But then the body wakes up. Maybe then I'm hitting my next favorite lift, and next thing you know, I got a dopamine hit, and I'm feeling good. And so a lot of times I try to tell myself like something is better than nothing. I got up and kept going, and sometimes my next session is even better because of it. Like I never feel bad after doing it, and even though I was upset with myself for only doing 6 miles, I guarantee I would have been way more upset if I didn't go at all. You know what I mean? And so I think one of these things is like not stacking bad decisions. And I still struggle with this. Um, Not nearly as bad as I used to, right? But like compounding bad, I guess not training sessions, but just bad decisions, right? You have a bad training session, and then I use it as an excuse to like eat a snack because I'm eating my emotions at this point, like, or, I guess I had a bad workout, so I might as well drink this beer or something. Like, just whatever it could be. Then you're stacking bad, like double negatives, and double negatives are not a positive in this example, but I think that's something. So at least I got out there and did something because, if you miss it completely and you just start in this. So I think like having faith in the process, getting back up the next day, getting up early, maybe like you said, understanding, hey, today I probably shouldn't have done legs on Saturday. If I really was honest with myself, doing an epic leg day and then trying to run 12 miles the next day is probably not smart. So I probably wasn't setting myself up for success. But having faith that, hey, let me just get some rest and get good sleep and ready to rock and roll. So like not just calling it a wash. Okay, let me look at this. Why was this? But not beating myself up about it. Um, One thing you said, and kind of a little bit of a tangent, is it's really interesting because the guys I go to the gym with, um, you know how you say like we like have a hard time stopping. I think like when you're looking at different personalities, they like thrive on me being there, right? Like they'll still go without me, but they won't nearly push as hard if I'm not there, right? So I think that probably resonates with some people when you're out there at the gym with your gym bro, or you have a guy spotting you. All of a sudden, you feel great and strong, or someone's watching you, or like. So I think like I always tell them you can do that. Like the other day, I moved the weight on like the leg extension without telling him, and then he did it, and he's like, "Why is it so much heavier?" I was like, "Do it," and then he did it, and I'm like, "So you can do it?" Like I was confused. And sometimes they just need that extra little push as well, you know. Um, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Well, you know what I was gonna say? Something that you mentioned earlier about, sometimes it's like the first exercise you do, it feels
mhm,
off, but then the rest of the session is good. Or it's like one exercise sometimes it feels off, but the rest of the session feels good. Sometimes that's super relatable to me. So it's like
mhm,
if I have somewhere between 6 to 8 exercises in a single session, which might be a lot for a lot of people. I love
yeah,
it. But maybe 1 out of 8 exercises don't go my way. But
mhm,
everything else is fantastic. Sometimes I have to fight this feeling of being like, "Man, this sucks," because it's like
mhm,
one movement didn't go the way that I wanted it to or felt a little weird or whatever, I underperformed, but then I just
mhm.
beat myself up even though 7 out of 8 other movements felt
Yeah, we're
amazing.
great.
And it's
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. But it's like such a human thing, right? Where we experience one bad thing or one thing that we perceive as being bad, even though it's probably not that big deal in the first place.
mhm,
And then it's like, that's all we can fixate on. It's like
yeah.
such a
We always
that's
focus on
such
the
a
negative.
yeah, that's such a
Yeah,
human thing, I feel, and it's I don't know if there's any I think it I think the solution to that, I'm still trying
mhm,
to figure it out, but I think what's helped me is, like, having awareness of it
yeah,
and then just rolling with it, knowing that
mhm,
and being trying to acknowledge that, "Hey, everything else went okay," or it went
yeah,
really well, and try
yeah,
to it's never as that simple as like, "Oh, now everything's all good." It's like it's a fight to try to
yeah,
at least for me, it's always a fight to try to get myself to change my perspective, but it does help, I think, at least a little bit to have
yeah.
a bit of
And
awareness.
yeah, and I think like not like a lot of this just comes with experience, right? That we've talked about, like, when you first started, you would beat yourself up way more about it. I think understanding the one bad is okay. I think also, like, on that same side of the coin, not just wishing that away, like, not just like dismissing it without thought. You know what I mean? Like, okay, let me analyze why that was a bad exercise. And like, because you could easily say, well, 7 out of 8 are good. I'm never going to improve that seventh one. Well, that's not probably the right mentality either. So I think that is definitely interesting. One thing, and I think we've talked about this before, that I've tried to do more now is compliment others just in general because you might feel like that lift is awful or that run was awful or whatever you're doing in your training goals are awful. Sometimes all you need is someone to say, "Man, great run, great lift. Man, are you prepping right now? Are you is that what like?" And then all of a sudden you're like, "Oh yeah," it brings me back to reality that this is really good. Like people are noticing. It's like above the standard or whatever it is. Like we're our worst critiques. You know what I mean? We experience this in music. We play something we think it's awful, and someone's like, "It sounded awesome." It's like, "No, it didn't." It's like, "No, man, I'm telling you, it sounded awesome." Oh, okay, like thank you. So I think at least for me, I try to do that now with more people because who knows how it might affect them that day. Because I know I appreciate it when I'm having a day that I don't think is one of my best and people still say good things, it's just nice.
Definitely. Yeah, you know what I found too, since I've been doing a little bit more complimenting lately than I have in the
Mhm.
past, is actually, I find that even for myself, like, this is a selfish reason to give compliments, but, like, sometimes, like, my training session isn't going great, but I give someone else a compliment, and
Mm, mhm.
I just, like, I give a compliment, they look like they're the compliment is well received. It's like,
Yeah,
"Well, those last couple sets, they sucked for me, but, this guy's feeling a lot better now." And that actually, there's
yeah.
there's there's it goes along with that concept that people who are more outward thinking, they go out of their way to serve others, tend to be
Mhm,
a little bit happier.
mhm.
Kinda goes in alignment with that principle. So it's
Yeah,
like that guy wins, gets a compliment, and I really try to make my compliments genuine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then I get a little bit of a win out of it. I was like, well, I actually feel pretty good about
Yeah,
that.
I
So
think it
my
just brings
own
the whole
critique
vibe up.
feels
You know,
good.
the whole vibe and energy is up, which is always a good thing. No, that's awesome. Um, we were talking about like you were talking about earlier with like knowing your goals and what season you're in. I had a question about this. Like, what about so we talked about some bad training sessions, maybe a workout, maybe a lift or whatever. But what about like when you start feeling that you're behind on your goals? So like, and this is specifically relevant for both you and I, and both like you're starting the fat loss phase. I'm in the marathon prep. These are long. These are things that you cannot procrastinate on. Like, and talking about different personalities, I'm a procrastinator, right? Like, I'm the kind of person who's writing that paper midnight, and it's due the next morning or whatever. But when when you're doing these big events like this, there is like a cutoff point. There is like a point of no return, and I always get nervous about that. So like for like just I guess for you, you've done multiple preps. You have a plan. It's a math equation if you really think about it. If we feel like we need to get to X weight, we need to lose this much for this time while retaining muscle. For me on the marathons, like I have this many weeks to run. I need to do X amount of miles a week to hit what I think is going to set me up for success for my time. When you miss a workout here or there because of injury or because it just didn't feel good, we think that's like the right decision, but now we look and that is compounded. It's like compound interest. And now, oh crap, I've missed too many of these. Do we change our goal? Do we move it? Do we try to sneak in a couple extra workouts? Do we have an aggressive cut for a month or something? Like what are your thoughts on that? And have you had to deal with that where maybe you were trying to, prep and it's like, oh crap, I got sick during this or something happened and now I'm behind. And I'm not where I need to be. Do you still go even though you're not going to perform your best? And how does that handle with your mental psyche? It's a big
That's a
question.
big question. Good good question too.
And
Maybe
not to cut before you start, Sam, sorry. And I know like we have some other like bodybuilders and stuff that listen, and I think this can be appropriate, at least in the I have very limited experience, right? People have shown up to a show and they probably don't feel like they're ready, right? And I think it's awesome that they go and it's a great learning experience. But I would like to like kind of understand then like is that their best that they brought? Did something happen? Is this just a step along the process with their goals, or do they know where they kind of fell off and they still just stuck to it because that was the date, the travel that they had there, all that other stuff? Sorry, before you get going.
no, this is a good question. Big question, but a good question. I think I'll start by saying that for me now, because I'm a little bit less neurotic than I used to be, what helps me with this is I think about checking off all the boxes I can, and then from there, there's nothing more I can do in the process. So I just roll with whatever's going to happen is going to happen.
Hmm.
So I'll elaborate on that a little bit. I'll expand. I'll speak on the prep that I'm doing right now. So started my fat loss phase 9 weeks ago. The fat loss phase meant to be about 3.5 months. The plan is to lose 20 pounds in 3.5 months, which is it's quite a bit. The numbers aren't adding up at this point. If I keep losing at the rate that I'm losing, I'll be like 4 pounds short, something like that.
Mm.
So in the back of my head right now, I'm thinking about a lot of what you just mentioned, like I'm behind already. Like the plan was 20 pounds. Like, what am I going to do? So I'm thinking about everything in my head. Like, do I change my calories to be a little bit more aggressive? Do I increase my step count? Or should I let it sit where it is, keep losing at a pound per week, get to that 3.5 month point, reassess my physique, and then make the decision from there? Because it could be the case that I get to the 3.5 months, and even though I'm a few pounds heavier than I had planned, maybe I actually like from a visual perspective, like when I see my photos, because I'm not taking my photos at this point, when I see them, maybe it's like, no, I'm four pounds heavier than I plan, but, like, I'm actually as lean as I should be, so
Yeah.
that could be
Or
the case too, like, there's different not sure how it's gonna look. So, different options. What I'm leaning towards is the latter one. Like,
Mhm.
I wanna keep things as unchanged as possible at this
Yeah.
point so that I can save the other tools for later when maybe I need them more. So the other tools being a more aggressive deficit. Eventually, I'm gonna have to lower my calories. I'm gonna have to. But if I can, I wanna save that tool for later.
Mhm.
Eventually, I'm probably gonna have to increase my step count. But again, it's another tool that if I don't have to use it now, like it's not essential that I use
Mhm.
it, then maybe I save that for a rainy day later when I actually do need it. And I'm definitely gonna need to increase my step count later. Like just
Yeah.
it's gonna have to. So I'm opting to save those tools to stress my body as little as possible
Mhm.
and then see how it plays out by the time I get to October. That's when I'm going to stop. Assess my physique and then go from there. What that might mean is adjusting my overall plan as in cuz at that point I actually have a maintenance phase planned. What
Mm.
that could mean
Mhm.
if I'm genuinely behind, it's like, yeah, I took the photos, like, yeah, probably should have tried to get those 4 or 5 pounds
Yeah.
off.
Yeah. No
Then
more
it's like, okay,
maintenance time. Yeah.
well, maybe it's like, "Okay, I take a couple of weeks, shave a couple of weeks off the maintenance." Not a big deal. Or maybe actually, that is what I would do. Like, that is the thing. Or I would have to diet more aggressively when the maintenance phase ends, and I wouldn't wanna do that because it would be too invasive, I think.
Yeah.
It would
Yeah.
risk losing muscle, make the process more stressful than it needs to be. So I think what I would opt to do is just decrease the size of the maintenance. It's not a big deal at the end of the world. Here's why this all works though, and why I'm not stressing about it. So I understand, I'm aware of the different options. I know what
Mhm.
happens if I do one thing and it turns out one way or the other. I have an idea of the different paths, the different things that I'm going to do. The reason that it's going to work out, I know it's going to work out either ways because I have so much time.
Yeah.
I think this is something that's really helpful. Is I'm doing everything I can. I've made certain decisions. I'm going to follow through with them, and I'm going to do everything I
Mhm.
can based off of those decisions. The reason I'm not stressed about things going off a little bit is because I do have so much time. I can pivot, I can change direction if I need to. So, I think that's one of the secrets that I've learned in the context
Mhm.
of, like, a bodybuilding prep is for me, giving myself lots of time, extra time for a maintenance phase in the middle of it before I
Yeah.
go on the hardest part of the prep in case I need to decrease the size of the maintenance phase. Or
Interesting.
maybe I have time for a diet break in the middle of the hardest part of prep. And maybe it's like,
Mhm.
okay, there's a diet break there. It's great if you can take it. If not, then we take it out and it's fine. Like you need to lose an extra pound or two. You just take the diet break out. Like, no big deal. Maybe just take an extra refeed day instead. So it's
Mhm.
like I've got time to be able to pivot and change the plan if I need to, and I think
Yeah.
that that's taken a lot of of stress out of things. Now, on the flip side, like let's say that I didn't have all that time and I didn't have as much room to pivot and adjust if things don't
Mhm.
go my way. What I would do in that different context is same principle is map out what are the best things that I can do right now. Train
Mhm.
X days per week, this much of a deficit. If I go more than this deficit, maybe that's a good idea. Maybe it's not because it'll actually lead me to losing muscle. So I'll decide on what the most appropriate deficit is, try to get sleep, you know,
Mhm.
be present at work, so on and so forth. And then I'll just follow through with it and then do the best I can with that. And then
Yeah.
anything outside of that, it'd be hard. I'd try to let it go because it's not in your control. It's like, I've got this much time. I can't change that.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to do the best I can, check off all the boxes I can check off, and then follow through with that. I
Yeah.
think that's the best thing that you can do. I and if you brought up like new bodybuilders, for
Mhm.
example, like doing their first shows, and maybe that is kind of the approach they're taking. They've got like there's less experience involved. There's more of like there's more what ifs. Like, what
Mhm.
if I'm not ready on time, or I don't actually have that much time to get ready. Like, there's so many unknowns. I think the best advice I could give is to, yeah, just check off all the boxes
Yeah.
and then do the best you can, and that's the best that you can do. Don't be lackadaisical. If you've got a goal,
Yeah.
then geez, check off the boxes for sure. You're not going to do yourself any favors from, skipping stuff. I wouldn't
Yeah,
do
yeah,
that.
yeah. And like,
Mm,
I like that last point, like kind of like don't I was basically like thinking like don't rush to failure, with it. Like don't do something to set yourself up for failure where you now are doing something kind of maybe that's not healthy in the long term. Cause like when you were describing your original plan, like I'm thinking, yeah, like when you have that much time, like first of all, I feel like that helps you build the lifestyle and not necessarily like a one off or these crash, preps that people do and then they rebound, right? Because you have built this over such a long time um, that it just becomes part of your life. It gives you more wiggle room. But I'm wondering also, um, do you think like this? Because I'm just thinking about the last time and what I'm gonna have to do on this next prep for me. And we were talking a little bit earlier about personalities. Do you think like I just know when you say that, like in my mind, I know I have wiggle room, so therefore I'm not gonna be as strict. Right? Like, but maybe that works for some people, but I know like, okay, this is like the actual red line that I cannot cross. And I can hyper focus for like I kind of feel like that with the marathon prep, right? Like I started July 1st, just like I did last year. I'm doing the same exact basically plan ish, with some adjustments, trying to increase my time. And I'm a little bit slower on all my runs right now, but I haven't missed as many runs as last year. Right. So like last year I did 80 runs to prep for it, like training runs. So in my mind, if I do more than 80, then that's a win. Like, cause I think on game day, I can show up and perform, if I have the training, like if I trust my training, because I'm not gonna go I will peak at peak, right? And um I think it's a little bit different with like a performance sport. I was thinking about this when we're lifting. Because
mhm.
when I compare, I'm going a little bit backtrack, but when I compare like my lifts, it's really hard to say, am I really truly improving? Because I'm not ever redlining on, except unless I'm like PRing. It's really hard to say. Like maybe I was doing a heavy day, maybe I'm doing a light day that day. Like maybe I took more time, like we were talking about in between rests. Whereas like for performance based, I think it's easier for me to use the data because I know when I'm doing a race, I'm going all out. And so I can use that time as like a time. I don't use any of my training times as like a real gauge. But like I never it's hard I guess like a power lifter would have those lifts as like a hard number. For us, like I think bodybuilding, because you can get a great physique without lifting heavy, you know. So little caveat with that. But yeah, going back, like, do you think like for you specifically, and then other bodybuilders, like for personalities, like with that much time, could that be problematic for some? And then you're being a little bit more like when you have those days that you didn't really follow the meal plan or we missed the weights or whatever. It's okay because I got so much time. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely not for everyone.
Yeah.
Personality is gigantic.
Mm.
I think you nailed it on the head. For some personality types, like it does become too tempting to become lackadaisical to opt to skip steps on the checklist if you
Mm.
know you're like 12 months out from a competition.
Yeah.
Then it can become super easy to just
Mhm.
skip steps, and before you know it, you're 6 months in. It's like, oh crap, I'm 10 pounds behind where I should be. So yeah, definitely. I
Yeah.
do think that, I mean, from from my experience, you can kind of change your personality, or you can have a certain personality and work on your weaknesses. So like
Hmm.
a person that really struggles with that in general, like sticking with something for a year, maybe that's something that they really struggle with. It doesn't mean that they can't get better at it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
if your personality isn't good at that by default, you don't have to write yourself off from doing it. It just means that you'll have to work at it. So I think that there's room
Yeah.
for growth for a lot of people. You don't a person in that context wouldn't have to write themselves off. But it isn't for everyone for sure. Just like bodybuilding in general isn't for everyone. Doing a contest prep that's 12 weeks, 16 weeks, 20 weeks,
Yeah.
56 weeks or whatever, 52. How many weeks are in a year? I can't remember. It's 52 or 50.
52.
Okay, 52, not 56.
Tell us
Uh,
if we're wrong in the comments.
yeah. Yes. Leave
Blow
a
us
comment
up.
below to tell
Yeah.
us how many weeks are in a
Weeks are
year.
in a year.
Um, but like a prep in general, it's just not for everybody. There's very few people do it. In fact, it's not for most people.
Yeah.
Just like, very long preps might not be for
I,
everyone either.
I really like that point. And I do think, the quicker you do something, the less time. I feel like higher risk, higher reward. And you just have to understand that. I think there's more. This is just my belief. I don't really know the stats behind it, but like I think the harder you push like that to make up for the time, the more risk for injury, the more risk for like a super low diet, like a high deficit. I think maybe a bad rebound, a bad experience with the sport of it. So therefore, like maybe you like write it off later. Um,
Mhm.
so I think and that maybe some personalities are okay with that high risk, high reward, like we go for that. But I did really like your point because as you're speaking of this, like obviously I think I am the shorter time frame kind of person. And not maybe I'm not though because I am doing like I basically been in like a prep since last marathon prep. It's just like I'm nonstop training. I just have different goals that are changing what I'm doing. But maybe I need that because I get bored with a certain thing.
Mhm.
So it's not like a effort thing. It's like I need to change my focus. But I do think we've talked about this on the podcast in the past. Like it's the journey, not the destination. Maybe that's the same thing. Maybe like we think doing a year long bodybuilding prep is like this the journey and the destination that we want to be on. But maybe the real journey is like sticking to something for a year, right? Like it may like even like a broader, like you're talking about, like learning that discipline of hey, that's not your personality type to be disciplined for that long. It doesn't matter if it's a bodybuilding prep or anything. You can apply this discipline. Maybe it's saving money for 12 months. Like you've now done something for longevity that you can now apply to other aspects of your life. I think it's kind of when you were talking about that, like, oh man, that resonates.
100%. And you can look at so like you mentioned that like well, I'm thinking about you for example. So it's like you classify yourself as being like the shorter prep kind of a personality, but you're thinking too, you're training consistently since your last prep. You're doing a marathon prep right now, which is a different kind of prep. So like you're always working towards something, and I think that suits your personality really well. Like you grind hard. You're always firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
In a way though, like when you look at it in the context of a prep, it's like it's kind of in a sense like you're doing a marathon prep right now, and then technically you're going to roll into your bodybuilding prep like after that, and a relatively short one at that. But in a sense, it's not so different from doing like a pre-prep diet.
Yeah.
Like for me, the way that I'm thinking about my pre-prep diet, and that by the time you're like 12, 16 weeks out from your competition, the bodybuilding competition, you're already gonna be, like, relatively lean,
Hmm.
right? So you're gonna already be starting at a relatively lean point, which is the whole purpose of, like, me doing a
Yeah.
pre-prep diet is, like, I want to get to the level of leanness that you're kind of at right now,
Hmm.
and then I
Hmm.
start the hard part of my prep, which is, you're kinda doing something similar, but just in a different way,
Different way. Yeah. A
and
more
I think
painful
that
way.
I mean, I wouldn't do a marathon prep to get leaner, but it suits your personality. So, and you can make all sorts of arguments about what's optimal and what's not, but you're right.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, I think you're onto something. It's about the journey more than the destination, and there's different paths there's different options as far as what the journey can be and
Mhm.
what you can learn from the different kind of journey that you pick. And so I don't know if
Yeah.
there's in the context of life in general, if there's a right or wrong way to do things, you can go down the rabbit hole of what's the most optimal path based off of science.
Mhm,
But, with you, Zach, honestly, from the time that I've known you,
mhm.
you've done things that most people have not accomplished when going the scientific route to a T. So, like, to put things
Right.
into perspective here, like, the transformation that you've accomplished over the past 3 years or so, some of it is, like, kinda out there. Like, when you
Mhm.
the last time you competed in bodybuilding, you did something very similar to what you're doing right now. Like, you did a marathon,
Yeah.
like, right before the bodybuilding prep, but something that you noted was, like, you got like, you kinda built muscle because you were training
Mhm.
hard, right? Which
Yeah.
isn't even scientifically optimal for a
Oh, yeah,
marathon. Like,
marathon
you
runners
don't.
do not. I'm a heavy marathon runner. Yeah.
Right, right?
Yeah.
So, you kind of did what science says you shouldn't do, which is you built muscle
Mhm,
while you're training for a marathon, or you trained with the intention of building muscle while you're doing the marathon, and you did, and
mhm.
then you ended up being having, like, a very muscular physique immediately after doing the marathon
Yeah.
prep, doing the bodybuilding prep when you got on stage, and you did really, really well. Anyways, my whole point
Yeah.
is your whole journey kind of has gone against the grain as to what science says is optimal, and
Mhm,
yet
mhm.
you are, from my perspective, and don't let this get to your head too much, um,
I'm gonna get to the
you're
next part
like
and be like, "Sam, I'm good. I don't need to do anything."
You you've made a lot more progress than the vast majority of the population, I would say.
Yeah.
Like, you've got a a very high tier physique, you built a ton of muscle, and you haven't done it under the pinnacle of what the science community says are optimal
That
circumstances.
it's funny, like, and I appreciate it. I'll try not to let it go to my head, but,
Don't do it. It's too late.
I'm gonna be like, "Sam, I don't have to train today."
Yeah.
Oh, no, just kidding. But,
It's
it's
not
funny
optimal, but it's gonna
because
work for me, right?
well, yeah, yeah. I need a new, reel with me doing the bicep curl. I'm like, "Screw this optimal stuff. Let's just, like, jerk the weight up." But, it's funny because when I did the bodybuilding show, I mean, everyone was shocked that I ran a marathon in so few months before. Like, it's like not a thing, I feel like, in the bodybuilding community. And again, I was new to the bodybuilding community, right? I'm like, "Oh, okay, like, I'm just like this Marine who does stuff and things." Um, and I didn't, I until you kind of spelled it out like that, I didn't really realize it. But that is true too for the marathon. I mean, like, when I look at marathon runners, I'm not the body type for a marathon runner either. And I would say, like, I know I'm not going to be great at any of them, and I think I'm okay with that. But it's like I am highly competitive in them. Like, my marathon time is a very good time for someone who's not like a marathon runner. Like, I think a lot of people that are the quote unquote like just runners and follow they have running coaches and all this other stuff. Like, I beat them. Like, and I'm like, okay, I did my own thing and my own plan. So no, that is interesting. And it's funny because I haven't done a lot of Marine Corps like PTs lately, but both of those things have uh like, I don't want to say bodybuilding specifically, but focusing on building muscle and strength and my running and my endurance have helped me in all those PTs as well. Like, anytime we do like a fitness event, like, people always say, "Oh, like, I don't want to be on." Last time we had to pick partners, and you had to run with your partner the whole time. No one wanted to be my partner because they didn't want to get gassed, right? Because I'm like gonna win. They also know my mentality. My mentality is I'm going to win. We came in second, and I almost made the guy with me throw up because I was so upset. I'm like
I don't
trying to
think I'd wanna
motivate
be
him.
your partner either.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got to the run. It was a mile and a half run out. Did a whole bunch of burpees and squats and run a mile and a half back. Um, and we got there second, and I was shocked how fast I was on the burpees and the squats, just because I think all of this, endurance that I have and the muscle building I have, and then of course we got passed on the run because our team did not, meet the time. But yeah, no, that is interesting, and sometimes there's those, yeah, not following just the what science says or what's optimal. I think everyone's individually. I think you always hit on it. Personality is huge, and realizing that.
It's huge.
I also think like we kind of mentioned it, like, and just to kind of make sure we recap on that is like understanding your goals. I think is so huge because I think I could really beat myself up on not being the best marathon runner or not being the best bodybuilder or whatever. But like that is not my goal. Like my goal is to do both, and that's a unique goal. But like that's so I have to know that and understand that when I'm going into this, right? Like I also think for like in an improvement season, like I was so stressed after gaining 20 pounds after the last show. You know what I mean? Because like I didn't know like because the whole year and a half before I was just trying to lose weight because I was overcoming like being out of weight, like and all this other stuff. So but understanding the goal was to, okay, I'm going to build muscle, I'm going to put on weight, and then I'm going to cut later because now I've learned this skill. So I think just at least for me, really understanding goals. I think for anyone listening, like, what is your goal? Is your goal just to get on stage? That's okay. That's a goal. How much time do we need to do that? Is your goal just to finish a marathon? Okay, let's like follow the points. Like, and then from there you update your goals. You make new goals. You push yourself. Like I don't know. So I just wanted to kind of make sure I hit that. And I don't know what your thoughts are because I think obviously you've had a lot of preps, and I'm sure your goals have changed. I mean, the goal we're gonna get pro cards, but like your goal within in the season may have changed. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I thought just the summary of everything that you just said, I think you said it really well. And another way that you could look at it too is understanding your goals. The other way that I think about it is to know the game that you're playing. I mean, just different games
Mm-hmm.
involve having different goals. So for me, I'm getting my prep with the training. It's different than being in a lean bulk. Being in a lean bulk, I'm getting more
Mm,
energy, more calories, more supply. So I'm able to push my limits with I can get away with more. I can push my limits a little bit harder and be able to recover from that, but that's not the game that I'm playing right now. I'm not trying to hit new PRs. That's not the focus as much right now. It is to retain muscle, get good stimulus, push my limits as much as I can in this different game so that I can get to the end of the prep with the best physique possible, holding on to as much
yeah,
muscle to not feel as stressed as I have, like to minimize stress as much as possible because that'll leave my physique looking as fresh as it possibly can be. But that's just a different way. It's semantics at the end of the day, and
yeah,
just a different way of thinking about it is to understand that I am right now playing a different game
yeah,
than lean bulking. Prep is different than lean bulking.
yeah. I love that, and just focus on your mental. Like I think our worst enemy is going to be ourselves, right? Like we are in our own way more than anything, and as long as you're okay with your goals, you know what game you're playing. Like we set ourselves up for success by with our expectations that we have. Um, not getting down on ourselves, especially in a thing like bodybuilding, where it's like you are competing against yourself, and I think that's the approach. At least I am taking with it. Like we've talked about this. Like I'm not competing against whoever shows up. I'm competing against me, and I'm my biggest enemy in during the prep throughout. And how I'm approaching it. So yeah, man, I think it was good. Is there
I
any
think
kind of
so too.
anything else like you wanted to hit? Um,
Jeez Louise. I think we got some I think we hit on like some really good ones for today.
yeah,
I can't think of anything more for now. I will probably think of
yeah.
something.
Well, and I'm hoping that in for anyone out there, if like any of the stuff resonated with you, you guys have anything that questions about it, like put it in the comments. If you're kind of going through uh some kind of phase of workout, a prep or anything like that, and you've had a bad training session, put it in the comment, let us know. Like we're all here at community to help each other. Um and yeah, and if you like kind of knowing a little bit more like about Sam and I's journey, we can talk more about that. I think at least for if Sam's okay with it, as long as when I know for me when I get into the next bodybuilding prep, I want to start talking more specifically about that. But if you guys find that interesting, let us know.
Like
Um,
the video if you want to dive into that more deeply when we get to Zach's prep, to let us know or to give us
yeah.
a thumbs up in the comments.
Yes, there we go. An emote, a flex emote or something.
Yeah. Cool.
Definitely.
Well, this was awesome, Zach.